Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles and cousins, of course, and grandmas and papas, or if you prefer, grandmothers and grandfathers, and baseball fans everywhere, welcome to this edition of the Valley Baseball League podcast. As you're all well aware, we are just a few days away from the start of our 2020 season. I know you guys are all like, well, you're not playing any real games. You're right, we're not. But we're going to bring you the 2019 season in a way you didn't get a chance to see it before. So look forward to that. What are we talking about today? We're talking about the changes to the minor leagues. We're going to talk about how it's structured at the moment, and then we're going to break it down into how it may get restructured once Major League does its thing. Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Knight, and on behalf of the Valley Baseball League and all the teams in the league, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this tonight. I know you're looking at me like, oh, the hockey player's an expert on minor league teams? No, I'm not. That's why I brought in my area experts. We got three of them to go to. We're going to be talking to Joe Harman.
Hi.
We're going to be talking to John Leonard, and we're going to be talking to Austin Gisriel, who wrote, if you haven't got it, rush out right now, pause the podcast, go get the book. If you want, read the book, and then come back and we'll talk minor leagues. Austin's the most prolific Valley Baseball League author there is. And judging by his kind of workflow and where his head seems to be at, he's going to be the most prolific writer for the Valley League for a while to come. Anyway, gentlemen, welcome everybody.
Hi.
Thanks, Graham.
Well, hey, so let's go around the horn first. John, you're SMDR for the Valley Baseball League. Let's start with you. Set the stage for us. How are the minor leagues structured right now? Let's just start there. So people who might not be experts in the minor leagues, A-ball, AA, all that, set the stage for them so they can follow along, and then we can get into how Major League is proposing to change that.
Well, for years and years and years, the major leagues have had a number of minor league teams, and it's been pretty static across organizations, although some teams have a few more. But there are rookie level teams like the Gulf Coast League and the Arizona League, and the Dominican League would fall into that as well. There are short season A teams like the Pioneer League and the New York Penn League. Full season A, and so these are steps too. Each players want to go up the ladder as much as possible. The full season A leagues are the Midwest League, South Atlantic League, Florida State League, and then from there you move up to AA. So most organizations would have had 2, 3, sometimes 4 A-ball teams, but then every major league organization only has 1 AA and 1 AAA team, and then of course the major leagues. So I'm not even sure, maybe Austin can speak to this, but Major League Baseball is doing a lot of saber rattling right now about eliminating a bunch of teams to ostensibly save money and to make each of the fields reach a certain standard. But they're looking at severely streamlining their minor league systems and reducing the number of players that they have.
Yeah, cool. Hey, Austin, why don't you jump in on that? Anything to add to kind of the landscape that John described there?
Yeah, just to flesh out a little bit, the Arizona and the Florida, one of the Florida leagues is really considered in a Dominican, like an extended spring training. And then rookie ball, you have some towns in Southwest Virginia, for example. Covington used to be in a rookie ball league, which was the Appalachian League. And there are 2 levels of A-ball. You have low A, so in our region that would be Hagerstown, and then you have high A. The Hagerstown's the South Atlantic League, the Sally League. High A would be the Carolina League. That would be Frederick, Lynchburg, Salem, for example. And the major leagues are certainly talking about restructuring the minor leagues, which I believe the last time they were restructured was 1962. I'd have to look that up. I'll just throw out there, and we can get into that later. But I will throw out there that to me the restructuring is long overdue. That development has changed dramatically in the last 50 years, and they're going to need to restructure. They, being the MLB, restructure their minor league system to reflect this new sense of development.
Gotcha. Hey, let's get Joe in here. Joe, talk
Yeah.
to us. What's your perspective on the
Well,
minor leagues as they exist now?
well, before I do that, I want to ask Austin to tilt his camera down so we can see the Orioles logo quite clearly on his jersey there, and applaud him for being so brave as to wear it.
Oh, well, okay, but let's tell him why, because right before you joined us, Austin, we were talking. John, I don't think John's ever come on a podcast without a Philly something.
That's not true, but it is
Either Phillies
often.
or Rick and Morty.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I was like, I'm not going to worry about wearing my Orioles shirts.
Yeah, and then
I kind of had this on this morning, and it's like, I don't have to change for this podcast. It's baseball.
Yeah.
It is definitely baseball. All right. So we give a shout out to our Philly fans, and we'll give a shout out to our Orioles fans. For all you Oriole fans, we had Sam Perlazzo on not that long ago. So if you're looking for a baseball fix from a major leaguer, go check out that podcast. It was a lot of fun talking to Sam.
Sam had a lot of great stories. But anyway, back to the minor leagues.
Yeah, take it back.
As we are here in the Shenandoah Valley with some mid-sized cities like Charlottesville and Harrisonburg and so forth. And we've talked, and Austin, you mentioned Hagerstown, Maryland, and Frederick, Maryland, and we know those names. Some of the exurbs or suburbs of the big metro areas. These towns that are lucky enough to have their minor league teams really fight for them in a lot of cases, especially ones that have gone to great lengths and put a lot of taxpayer dollars behind pulling a team from another community and bringing them into their own community. I think of Altoona, Pennsylvania, as one example of that, which is an affiliate. I think it's a AA affiliate of the Pittsburgh Pirates. But at the same time, they're very, very difficult to maintain them as economic businesses because there are so many minor league teams. It is tough to pull in fans from a town the size of, say, 30,000 people in a metro area of maybe 60 or 70,000 people and pay the bills with that. And if you ever gone to one, I remember, Graham, when I was in Colorado Springs, you're a Colorado guy, I went to a Sky Sox game, and when they were an affiliate of the Rockies, and between every half inning, there was some kind of ridiculous show that, because you have to provide, in addition to baseball, you have to provide family entertainment. And so all kinds of antics, jugglers, and, musical acts during the game. To me, it was, as a baseball guy, it was, this is a bit much. I love the Frederick Keys. I love the Hagerstown Suns. I don't want to see either of those towns lose their teams, which I know they're on the chopping block. But if it helps the game of baseball be more baseball oriented and not just, I don't know what the right word is about, and it's less about entertainment and antics in the stands, then I can certainly see Major League Baseball's point. And as a baseball fan, I'm not necessarily 100% opposed to it.
Well, let's get into for and against in just a little bit. I do want to do a quick plug for Erin Summers, who just joined us. We'll be bringing perspective. She's helping us do our Where Are They Now and What Are They Doing There game show. She recently interviewed the owner of the Savannah Bananas. And, I was surprised to find, from an economic standpoint, he's done away with all of the outfield advertising. And what he's gone to is he thinks of a baseball game as 5 stages. The baseball diamond is a stage, the concourse is a stage, the stands are a stage. But let's come back and personalize Major League Baseball as it is now from the Valley League. I was at the All-Star game a couple years ago, did an interview in one of the pieces I posted on the kind of what the Valley Baseball League is, and had a nice chat with one of the scouts. Talk to me about some of the players who've come out of, like, let's take a look at Cody Wilson. Cody Wilson was recently drafted from the Winchester Royals. He ended up in Hagerstown, but I think that was the second team he went to. John, I tell you what, walk us through, is there a typical progression for a Valley League player coming out of the Valley League going on into majors?
Very often our Valley League guys will skip those rookie level teams that Austin and I spoke about earlier and go directly to a short season A, like the Pioneer League. We talked to Mike Garza the other day. After he was drafted, he went straight to Helena in the Pioneer League and got off to a great start because our guys are older and because they're coming out of college. And those other leagues, lower leagues, are often for high school guys. So they often start a little bit higher, but then that means that they have to perform. They might not get as many chances either as younger guys who come in when they're 17 or 18 years old.
If I could ask you a follow-up, John, if I can jump in, Graham. One of the aspects that makes the Valley League valuable is its format, those long bus rides and playing every day and living in a strange town, in a small town. And that really encapsulates the minor league and low A ball experience. And so that helps Valley League alumni adapt better into that minor league culture, I would think. Is that right?
It does. Yeah, it gives them a little bit of a head start, maybe. Also with using wood bats for a summer, something that a lot of amateur players don't do. I think it's becoming more popular now. But both living away from home, host families, the travel a little bit. Although some of these leagues their teams are so far apart, they travel a lot more than what the Valley League does.
Talk about the North Woods League. That's what league where they do a ton of travel.
Yeah.
Hey, Austin, you've tracked a number of these players and been following the league for a long time. Have you seen any progressions from Valley League to minors and into majors that stand out to you?
I can't say that I've witnessed any personally. I mean, I've seen. I remember the night at Rebel Park that Blaine Sims, who was a left-hander, not from the University of Arkansas, but that was his home state. He was in a college in Arkansas. And he was
Central Arkansas, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And he signed as a free agent with Atlanta, and had a chance to see him at the Atlanta's minor league complex. But the truth of the matter is, if you're signed as a free agent out of any league or any school, you have a long haul. You're not one of the, you're a filler to be realistic. And there are guys who make it, who are signed as free agents like that. But as I said, you have a long ways to go because you haven't been invested. I think Blaine got $10,000, the night he signed. That's a long way from the $1 million that your high-end draft picks get, or even the 100,000 at the middle round, 8, 9, 10. And I'd have to look up exactly what those bonus slots are, which means that somebody in that organization has invested in you not only financially, but their scouts' reputations are on the line. The GM's reputation is on the line, scouting department. So they're going to give you more chances than a guy who signs, after a ball game in Newmarket or in Woodstock, for $10,000 and hope that you show something along the way. I mean, that's just and that's true of every summer league and every college, every ball player all over the country.
So, Austin, let me ask your perspective on this. Then is, by reducing the size of the minor leagues and the number of teams, an effort from the organizations, the major league organizations, to not have to fill so much and cut down on the number of people on the payroll and save money ultimately over that? Is that kind of the ultimate reason for pursuing this initiative?
Well, I believe so, and I believe it's very legitimate. I mean, for example, with the coaching and the technology that exists today, and you take a guy like Casey Mize, number 1 draft pick by Florida, from Florida by Detroit last year. So, he's pitched in big games. I mean, the SEC's drawing crowds that are bigger than anything he'll see in the Carolina League, by twice as much at least. And what's the point of having him pitch a night against a bunch of suspects? What's he learning from that? Whereas they could pitch him in a particular game, take him out of the rotation for 2 weeks at a development center and say, hey, we picked this up in how you release your curveball. So let's just study the video and work on that for 2 weeks, and then we'll get you back in a game against some legitimate hitters. The old idea in athletics that you always want to play up to improve. You got to face somebody, if you play tennis, you want to play against that person who's just a little bit better than you are. And so I think, lopping off those bottom 2, like the rookie level and certainly the short season teams, so you would have low A, high A, double A, and triple A, plus your development camps for these that would all take place, in one spot, which I'll just insert parenthetically. Look what's happening this year. I think Major League Baseball might actually be more worried about let's get this minor league refit going this year because it lends itself to that. But anyway, yes, the simple answer to your question is yes, and I think that's why they're going to it, is the better development technique by having actually fewer teams.
All right, baseball fans, I really hate to interrupt this conversation, but there are 3 important pieces of business I have to get to. Have to. First, please subscribe, like, and share us. Really super important to get the word out about the Valley Baseball League. We're in the top 10 of all summer collegiate wood bat leagues. We're in the National Alliance of Collegiate Summer Wood Bat Leagues. It's an alliance of 12 leagues, including the Cape Cod League. We're one of only a few leagues sponsored by Major League Baseball. We want to let people know what's happening in the Valley, what's good about this organization, and why they want to be involved. So help us do that. Also, if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, please share them. We'd love to hear from you. VBleague@isomermedia.com. That's VBleague@isomermedia.com. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not pay tribute to our great sponsor, Grace Burrows. The two last years, I'm not sure if that's a sentence, but it sounds kind of cool. The 2 last years of Valley Baseball League live streams would not have happened if it were not for the contributions and support of Grace Burrows. Here's her latest book. If you haven't gotten it, support her by reaching out and getting it. It's a great read. She's a great writer. I'm happy to say I was one of her first readers. Anyway, take a look. So let's dial into it from there. Who wants to attack this? John, you set up the minor leagues. Do you want to start on kind of what the proposals are? We know what it looks like now. What's your take on what it might look like once Major League Baseball gets done restructuring?
I can't speak to the specific details. Besides that, they're hoping to fill some of these cities that are going to lose their teams. They're looking to fill it with something that they were calling a few months ago anyway, a dream league, where it would be like independent baseball, and that maybe those guys would then get picked up to go into organizational ball. But Austin, I'd like to hear, Major League Baseball is a $10 billion industry, and these teams, they haven't opened their books. Like we don't know how much money that they are really making. What's your thought on I just don't believe the owners when they say they have to save money somewhere. Like they're just making money hand over fist. What's your thought on that?
I think their argument for restructuring the minor leagues, they presented the dumbest argument that they could have by talking about we need to save money. Now, those individual minor league franchises and the guys who own them, they're trying to save money wherever they can because, as was mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of profit to be had in minor league baseball. But I think if they had just come out and said, look, our development techniques are so far beyond what they were even 10 years ago that this is the best way to get our most talented, our greatest talent to the big leagues the fastest. And again, you just look at what it costs for a big time or even a mediocre pitcher in the big leagues. and you figure, okay, well, somewhere along the line, we're going to lose him for 12 to 18 months because he's going to undergo Tommy John surgery. And hopefully that's while he's making the minimum and not right after he signed a contract for $15 million a year. So I think the owners, I understand exactly what you're saying. To go with the we need to save money argument, they will, but they don't need to save money. What they need is a more streamlined flow of talent from the minor leagues to the big leagues that gets ready faster and is better coached when it arrives.
Yeah, well, hey, let me jump in from the I know I'm just a hockey player, and I know I got hit a few too many times in the head, but I do have a degree in economics. And, this kind of discussion about restructuring the minor league teams kind of comes up at an auspicious time in terms of there's been a move to go from like $7.50 an hour as a minimum wage to $15 an hour and kind of boost everyone's minimum wage. So it seems to me that one of the things they're trying to do is get more money in these players' pockets. John, just a note regarding the $10 billion industry and how much did the teams really make. There's a news story on the AP right now that major league owners are giving up like $650,000 per game to host them without fans. Anyway, I don't know what that all adds up to when you add in, what is it, 156 games per team per season. That gets to 10 billion, I think, pretty fast. But that aside, let's personalize it now. John, you mentioned to me when we spoke once, you were just heartbroken by the fact that there will only be 5 rounds to the draft and what that might mean to the Valley League. Let me go ahead and explain that to everybody. And then what I'd like to do is be the counter argument to that. And Joe, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Talk to me John, first about your thoughts about how this will affect hearing Valley League players drafted.
Well, I've been around this league now for, I don't know, like 15 years. And when I talk to guys, it is almost like I've never heard a player say that they didn't want to try to play pro baseball. So whether it was legitimate or not, I mean, the pitcher who tops out at 83 miles an hour wants to play pro ball. And I root for these guys, and I care about their futures, and I care about their careers, and I love it. Like every June when the draft comes around and it's 40 or 50 rounds is what it used to be. It used to be a lot more than that. Every time a Valley League player's name shows up on my screen, I think that's awesome. Another Valley League guy gets to chase his dream. And now this year that we're only going to have 150 guys picked, I mean, we often have at least one, like we average one Valley League player per round. So we often have 40, some years we have 50, 60, 70 guys drafted. With only 150 guys going, it might only be a couple guys drafted this year, if any. Now, with that said, there probably are going to be a lot of guys that will be signed as free agents after the draft because it looks like that's how Major League Baseball is going to fill some of those spots. Mm-hmm. But it's just not quite the same. And I mourn that a little bit that there won't be more Valley League guys getting picked by Major League teams.
Hey, let's get Joe's reaction to that. Joe, what are your thoughts on limiting the rounds to the draft?
Yeah, John's point is very well taken. That we don't get to be proud of our guys that come out of the VBL now, when we don't get to say, yeah, I was there when that guy hit a 3-run double and won the game for Woodstock, or completed the comeback for Winchester, or what have you. So those kinds of things are going to be taken away from us. I wonder about the big picture overall for the game of baseball and professional baseball throughout the United States, down the list of cities, right? And after you take off the top 30 some cities that host major league teams, and then you come down to the smaller towns with the regional teams in the minor leagues now. If there's enough of a market that at least some of these cities can still fill up a stadium to watch some good baseball, then there's going to be some kind of system or organization that will come in and hopefully take its place, whether or not that's an expansion of the independent leagues. Maybe we'll see more independent leagues. maybe that will then create its own sense of a funnel to the majors that the low A and rookie leagues are occupying currently. So optimistically, I hope that this doesn't mean it's the end of seeing a lot of the guys that just are desperate to play and want to have a shot. And hopefully there'll be still an opportunity and an avenue for those guys who are on the bubble or who are just now finding themselves as they're entering graduating from college and entering the professional realm, that there will be some opportunity for them, but that maybe there won't be, and we might not have as many former VBL players to talk about it that are currently in pro ball.
Yeah. Hey, Austin, why don't you jump in? Any thoughts on limiting the number of rounds to the draft?
Well, I think what'll really be interesting to see is next year, assuming that we have some kind of normalcy next year. I mean, in a way, with circumstances of the pandemic, you kind of understand that they don't want to, lock up too many guys, and then like what do we do with them? We can't send them to a minor league team or what have you. So I think the key really in terms of what they want to do, what MLB wants to do with the draft long term will be how many rounds there are next year. But I wanted to jump back in on a point that Joe brought up earlier about the circus that takes place at these minor league ballparks, which just drives true baseball fans to distraction. And I've had minor league operators tell me, we don't care if people go home not knowing what the score is, as long as they had a good time. And I'm thinking, then you don't care about the main product that you're selling. They can get a Ferris wheel at the county carnival. They can get jugglers anywhere. They can get all that other kind of entertainment anywhere they want it. You've got to educate your customer base about the product that they're sitting in front of. I'm going to sound like the old guy here, but in my day, the kids dragged their parents to the ballpark. Now parents have to drag their kids to the ballpark. And unless we get it the other way around, the way it used to be, a lot of these minor league teams are going to be in trouble because there just won't be the demand to go see a baseball game, which really, I mean, it's ridiculous that I even have to say this. It's the baseball game that's supposed to be the heart of your evening when you go out to the ballpark to see a game.
Yeah, I want to get I really wish I had thought bubbles. So now you know what makes him such a great writer. I want to have thought bubbles to go, loves baseball, definitely loves baseball, really loves baseball, clearly loves baseball. And let me take it to the Valley League, though, because really at the end of the day, Austin and Marcia Norgowski and I had a conversation kind of about the mystical side of baseball. And I think what we ended up with, and it's a good discussion that's going to continue later, but where we ended up, at least in my mind, is something magic happens when it's for the love of the game. So, back in the day when the Valley League started, and I've heard this from a couple of different people, there weren't that many Summerwood Bat Leagues. As a matter of fact, when we talked to Sam Perlazzo from the 70s, in his mind, there were three. There was the Alaska League, there was the Valley League, and there was the Cape Cod League, and that was it. Between now and then, there are at least 80 plus teams, summer league teams, and so there's a lot of competition for players. The downside is we might not hear as many names in the major league draft, but I think what that's going to mean for us is we're going to see a lot more talent available to play in our league. And I'm just curious. Let's go around the horn and then let's wrap this up. Is this going to change, especially when you think about the changes to eligibility? John, let's start with you. Will this change the dynamics of Summerwood Bat Leagues and kind of our division of games, I don't know what to call it, our age group, our demographic?
Yeah, I think it definitely is going to increase the pool of players that can come and play. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the NCAA handles another year of eligibility, how individual colleges and universities handle that. But there's a chance that we could end up with a much deeper and older group of college players next summer with more experience than what we usually do. I think it's definitely a possibility.
Joe, you want to jump in on that? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think that you used the right word, which was there's a lot more competition the competition being the right word, for these players. And I'm just a fan. I'm not involved in the VBL in any way, shape, or form, or the governance of any of the teams. But if I were, my advice would be, don't rest on the laurels that you've earned over the 100 years that this league has been around. Continue to modernize the league, continue to find ways to make this the most attractive league for new players. Be aggressive, be aggressive, be aggressive, be aggressive, and don't lose. Don't sleep on this, because the other leagues who are maybe don't have the name recognition and the stature are going to be finding very creative ways to put themselves up in front and be attractive to players. So the VBL has to do everything they can think of to stay where we are.
Right. Hey, Austin, how about you? Thoughts on, will this change the dynamics of the game in the VBL? Will this make the talent pool deeper?
Temporarily, yeah. But I think part of the problem with summer ball in general, back in the early 80s, I think there were 8 summer leagues. The VBL was lovingly referred to as the Redneck Cape Cod League. And now at last count, and I counted them up, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, there are 43. They're probably more than that now. And you have the minor league franchises have become worth so much that businessmen, people who've always wanted to be in the game, they can no longer afford a minor league franchise. So they'll buy or invest in a summer league now. And, the Northwoods League, which I think you mentioned earlier, plays an 80-game schedule that's imprinted on an old minor league up in basically Wisconsin, and they're drawing 5,000 and 6,000 people. That is the minimum fee for a franchise in that league is $1 million. So if you owners in the Valley League, you heard me right. And it's worth looking that up. If you go back as far as I do, you remember a relief pitcher by the name of Dick Raditz, who pitched for Boston. His son formed that league and decided to make this, a full-blown for-profit league. Besides that kind of competition, I think the Dream League that Major League Baseball proposing that John mentioned, to me, when I read the description of that is designed to take over the wooden bat leagues and to bring these guys who are not going to be signed but are going to be given a chance to keep at it, are going to be brought in under centralized coaching with a better medical staff, training staff, all that kind of stuff, to see if they can find that jewel in the rough, so to speak. Whereas they used to have to send these scouts out all over the United States, to little places like Newmarket and Harrisonburg to try to find that gem. So
whoa. So you're thinking is that this new concept as a way to replace the ex minor league teams is to come up with a system to replace the summer wooden bat league?
Yes, that's the way I read what the description is from the MLB, what they want to do with the minors.
Well, that should scare us all.
Yes.
So forget what I said about trying to keep the VBL competitive. We just have to keep it around.
Well, I think I was going to say, I think your point's well taken, though, about being competitive. And what will be the death knell of any league or any business is say, well, we've always done it this way. So, we've been successful for 100 years, so we'll be successful another 200. That's usually when the beginning of the end shows up. And you really have to be proactive if the VBL or any other league can keep itself at the forefront and say, hey, here's what we're doing. And look at our facilities and look at the coaches we bring in and look at the fans and et cetera, and sell major leagues on maintaining this establishment. Then they can say, well, the ballpark in Hagerstown is going to be empty, but we don't need to put a summer wooden bat league team there because we've got this really strong league that's already in place that we can take advantage of. But I do think the summer leagues are going to be in competition with this Dream League.
Wow. Big statement.
Well, yeah, big statement. And what a statement to end on. John, let me give you a chance to react to that. And then clearly, that's what I love about Austin. Every time I talk to this guy, every time there's like 3 other stories that we got to talk about. So you will see him back. You're going to see John and Joe back. John, give me your reaction to what Austin said, and then we'll wrap this up for tonight. And we're definitely going to have to dig into that statement and that idea.
I think it's definitely a fear And Austin's been talking to me about this for years. Austin, I don't know if you remember, we had the conversation about tradition and the fear of change in the Valley League, maybe in, I don't know, 2012. It was a long time ago.
Yes.
I think that's definitely something that the Valley League should be concerned about. The flip side, though, of course, is that the Valley League these guys still have NCAA eligibility, so the college players are still going to need a place to play. And I don't see the Valley League going away anytime soon. At least we certainly hope not. The Dream League would be for guys that would be past that. So, guys that are in a 4-year college, they're not eligible to be drafted or to leave college until the end of their junior year. So there's always going to be a need. There's always going to be a need for a place for those guys to play in the summers.
Right.
Well, something that I'm afraid of, though, is that organizations like Driveline and some of the other the coaching and that they take guys off the field and they work on their mechanics, they're becoming more and more popular. And I'm also a little afraid of guys not going to the Valley League and taking that opportunity instead, because that's a real competition. That's a real fear for me as well.
Well, let me just wrap it up on this. And Joe and I have done a number of podcasts, and one of the themes we hear over and over again is there's no substitute for live reps, either at bats or pitchers facing batters or whatever. And one last thing I'll say is, and Bruce Alger says this at almost every board meeting. The Valley Baseball League seems to be a darling of Major League Baseball. They think very highly of us. They comment often in the meetings. We meet with them at least once a year, although during this COVID crisis, Bruce was on the phone with them a number of times, and they're always saying that the Valley League is a model league for what Major League Baseball wants out of a summer league. So with that, gentlemen, I am going to say a warm thank you to all of you for giving me some of your time today. Couldn't do these podcasts without you, because after all, nobody wants to hear what a hockey player thinks about baseball. So on that note, I'm going to thank you all for joining us tonight. Want to wish you all, on behalf of the Valley Baseball League and the teams in this league, perfect health and a speedy return to the baseball diamond. As you've already heard, we're going to be back with more conversations about what changes to the minor league are going to mean. We got a lot more to talk about with Austin, Joe, and John, so look forward to that in the not-too-distant future. And you can start to find those conversations as early as tomorrow night right here on the Valley Baseball League's YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow night, same time, same channel. Good night, everyone.